Hi, I think we're live. Hello, everyone. We are live. It's Tankie Therapy. It's good to see everyone. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've done one of these. We already have 100 people in the studio. Okay, that's a little lot. We have 100. I mean, in the live stream, we have Lara, Jay, Adnan. There's a lot going on. Obviously, this episode is called "Tie Me into a Missile" yet again, or just again, because of obviously what's happened. Yet another combined surprise attack from the Zionist entity and the Great Satan working together. So we're hopefully here to unpack a lot of that stuff. I guess people have a lot of questions. We're in a really strange moment. There's a lot of disinformation flowing around. So I'm hoping with this episode we can kind of work our way through some of what's been happening. I guess let's start. I know we usually do a kind of around the horn with this style, but I don't run things like Lara does. Lara is very, you know, she's a professional runner of these things, and I'm not. So I think the best way is to just do it by age. We should start with Adnan. Sorry, I didn't mean to call
Age
you
before beauty, clearly, in this case. Older
out.
age before beauty.
How are you doing, Adnan?
I'm doing okay. Alhamdulillah. It's, going to be iftar soon, and I'm going to break my fast on Tankie Group Therapy. And to me, it is both an incredibly momentous time to be in Ramadan and feeling that sense of community with, global, Muslims, in this moment. But also, I am, I am not as panicked as I thought I would be about this moment and this situation because I feel like in some ways living under the foreboding sense of threat constantly, for such a long period of time. And speaking with guests on my show who are in Iran, I know that they are more used to, I can only imagine what they really were going through, but they, expressed a kind of fortitude and confidence that I find so impressive and inspirational, but I know it still must take its toll in its own way. So, in some sense, I feel relieved that we are moving into not a slow, creeping kind of erosion through economic stifling and the devastating consequences of increasing sanction pressure, but actually to a kind of confrontation where Iran can have agency over its fate. It can fight for its sovereignty, and it is doing so. So that to me is something that can be, I wouldn't say celebrated because the costs of it are going to be so incredibly high. And we can talk a little bit about what we expect the consequences of all of this to be for people in Iran, in the region, in the world, in US, in the kind of imperial core, etc. But it is somehow moving towards some kind of decision where you have agency. You're fighting the empire directly, and I don't think the empire is going to like that. So this is something different. That's how I'm feeling, right now. Is that concerned when I saw, of course, that the first targets, the first casualties are little girls, at school who are, the victims of this, Epstein empire's perversion and, exploitation. This is just the way of Israeli US Western war, is that the civilians will be the casualties, volleyball players at a sports facility, another school. So, of course, it is horrific. It is the cost of seeing that. It hurt me this morning to see that Iran is being subjected to the same violence we've been witnessing, in Gaza. And but we just cannot let the sacrifice of the Iranian people go unmentioned and without solidarity. So even though that hurts me, I do feel okay. The resistance is taking place.
I guess I'm next in the age, moving down the age spectrum here today. But first of all, Sina and Lara and Adnan, thank you for organizing this, and Adnan, thank you for. I think this is your third live stream today, so thank you for all of the analysis that you've brought us today. I woke up this morning like a lot of folks and was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Like they launched a war in Iran already. It kind of was um, something that we knew, I felt like, was gonna happen. Had been telegraphed very extensively, it felt like, right? But again, to be doing it similar to the 12-day war, right in the midst of, you know, supposedly deep negotiations. Um, Again, what's that term? Perfidy, I think is the term that is used in terms of, when you're negotiating is bullshit basically, right? Not acting in good faith. But I think, unlike the 12-day war, I think Iran was fully prepared for this to happen. I think they knew that this was going to happen. And I think that they also, were able to assess the vulnerabilities that they had this past summer and, prepare for the actions that would be taken against them. Um, and I mean, I don't know, I never know what people have access to, but if you're able to see, you know, as Cena calls them, resistoid, media right now, like there's a whole lot of, uh, Zionist pedo colony targets being hit, as well as U.S. military, installations and bases, as well as collaborator, kind of regimes. And I think that, like you said, Adnan, like there is something about watching resistance play out, and seeing not just the depravity and the violence that is enacted upon, colonized people or people under the imperialist boot, but actually to see folks fighting back. And that has certainly been something that, has it's a weird thing to say, but it sort of lifts your spirits in a certain way to see, that there are forces in the world that are willing to fight back against imperialism right now. Because I think that, sometimes over the last couple of years, especially during the moments of, so-called ceasefire and as we've seen, particularly the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro, the intensified blockade in Cuba with blocking oil from going in there. That unfortunately, a lot of people, a lot of states don't really have the capacity to fight back, and aren't really able to really defend fully their sovereignty against certain types of aggression. And some of that has to do with their geography and where they're located, and all of that. But Iran does, right? And whatever disinformation or psyops are engaged about the devastation of their leadership, we don't know the scale of those kinds of things, or whether they're what's accurate and not accurate in some of that. But what's clearly obvious, right, is that they are very capable of, enacting a very high scale military campaign and hitting targets. And I also, it sounds like the Strait of Hormuz has been effectively closed, if not officially closed. And so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of consequences to this. And I guess one of the things for me right now is that this is a huge, the significance of this war is obviously massive, right? Like if Iran is able to successfully defend itself, against this, which has already been declared by, I love the term the Epstein-Regime and the Epstein clash. I mean, one, it finally gives us a language to really link like who, the US Israeli kind of access is, right? And to recognize them as I like the class, the Epstein class, and so there's that. There's also the obviousness of this with the US now. Like, this is an extremely unpopular to go and launch another war on Iran in the United States, even with all the demonization of Iran that is just constant within our media. And so, I don't know how much, other than the fact that, a overwhelming supermajority of the politicians, right, which are part of that Epstein class, support it. I don't know how much and how long, Trump will be wanting to continue with this, knowing that, there's not going to be a lot of political support for this within his base, especially if he doesn't get some kind of sweeping victory early on. And so, anyway, that's just kind of where I am. Obviously, there's a lot to monitor, and I think the point you raised, Adnan, I mean, that was just so obvious, is that you know, the early, casualties, it's like 105, schoolgirls in Iran, right? All of the bullshit that always comes about, freeing Iranian women or whatever, it just like it always just falls apart like that once this type of violence takes place. And, you can see what the United States and the Epstein regime is all about. So that's kind of where I am.
So just so behind the scenes, I was the one who proposed that we do it by age, and then I immediately forgot. And then I was like, Lara, do you want to go next? And then I realized Lara's the youngest out of all of us. So I didn't even follow my own system. This is my turn. Um, I wanted to say something. Okay. So here's my initial thought. Okay, so I woke up this morning at my regular time, and when I tell people this, you're gonna all drop your face. I wake up at 4:30. I wake up for no reason at 4:30. I mean, there's reasons, but there's no actual good reason that I wake up at 4:30. Like I go to bed. I don't go to bed early. I go to bed like at maybe 11 or something. Like I've never slept a lot. So usually I wake up. This morning I heard, like last night was very windy at my house. And this morning I was like, oh, is that, it's like I heard the dog pacing at the door. I was like, oh, and then I realized the dog hadn't peed, and I was like, wait, is the dog at and then I kind of got up, and then I did the thing that we do instinctively. I reached over for my black rectangle of trauma called my phone, and I see that I have like 18 messages. So I was like, what the fuck's happening? And of course, everyone's like, oh my God, oh my God. And it's like all my friends and stuff telling me what happened. So of course, I can't go back to bed. And I just start watching. And the thing is, like, there is a kind of relief. Like, I was talking to my aunt in Iran yesterday and my grandma. It's been a while since since I'd spoken to them. So my mom was like, oh, I just heard from them. Like, you should call. So I called and I checked in and we talked about it. And my aunt, you could tell she was kind of keeping this from my grandma. She didn't want my grandma to hear this, but she was like, they're driving us crazy with this. Will they or won't they? Like, we can't, everyone's just so sick of it. And I was like, and in my brain, I wanted to say, I was like, well, you may know soon, because like, this is it. And it to me, there's something absurd in all of this, which is you have an imperial apparatus that is rapidly in decline, right? Like the U.S. empire is in decline. This is a fact. The U.S. as a state is in decline, and the U.S. as an empire is in decline. And all of these, and there are some things that states in decline can do to flex on their enemies, to flex on the world, to show how powerful they are. Obviously, the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela was one of those things. So it's and it's just like, that to me seems like in all of this, that a kind of desperation underscores the entity and its doings, because obviously they have no choice to do this in a sense, right? Like, I know that sounds weird, but I just mean in the sense that this entity is seeing its main sponsor, its leash holder, its own pit bull. I don't know what. I mean, at this point, I've come to the conclusion that it's just two countries. It's just one country now. It's called Zio America, and it's a weird hybrid settler colonial entity that exists somewhere between here and Palestine. This part of the world, that is to say, the global north, the sort of Westoid global north, and Palestine, and keeping this colony and keeping this entity afloat is obviously very expensive, right? Keeping it afloat and keeping it working. And the fact that people don't make the connection to Al-Aqsa flood and the subsequent genocide and the intense amount of resources it takes to stamp out a kind of colonial uprising the way we saw on October 7th, is that these resources are now bleeding out all of the world system that feeds the Zionists. Okay, that's the thing. This system, as powerful as they are, that power rests upon a pin, and that pin is called the U.S. empire. And that U.S. empire weakens every single day. Okay, it's weakening every single day historically, but also militarily, as other parts of the world have not just caught up, but surpassed them. Right? Because remember, it's one thing to be in the 19th century and to go around and to stomp out some starved peasants, right, who have no ability to fight back. But we've seen in the second half of the 20th century a remarkable growth remarkable, let's say, equalization in, I don't know, let's say the deterrent power of other states, right? Which is to say that there, for a long time, there was a kind of core of power in the world that was centered in Europe, or like Europe and the West or whatever, and it enjoyed, and of course, obviously, Russia was part of it too. Let's say Eurasia, but at the end of the day, there were, especially the world that we've known, which is since the 90s, and we have this sort of like, what's it called, full spectrum dominance of the U.S. in all of this, is that the world that we know is the world of the U.S. going around the world and stomping out little fires, right? Like what they see as little fires, stomping them out, because that's what empires can do, right? Like there's that, and then on top of that, then there'll be this, let's say extracurricular projects, which is to say, like the genocide in Iraq. It was a genocide; 1 million people died. It was an occupation invasion. It was an age of invasion, occupation, and subsequent genocide of the people of Iraq. 1 million people died. So these are, and that's just one chapter, right? Then there's the dirty war in Syria. There's the fake civil war in Yemen, which is a dirty war. There's the overthrow of Syria, which is again dressed up as a dirty war, dressed up as a civil war, but it's actually a dirty war. So like I was talking today to someone and I was like, oh, this is what we were talking about, World War III. And I was like, oh, World War III already started. It's already been going. It's been going on arguably since the invasion of Afghanistan. That this project of the American empire and its desperation to control every last drop of oil and therefore the petrodollar itself, this is what's at stake in what we're watching right now. Forget Zionism, forget the fascists, forget fascist Jews and all of that bullshit on top of it. This is not about Israel versus Iran. This is about the U.S. empire versus indigenous people of our region. Okay, the U.S. empire in collaboration with its colonial, although it's not like a regular to call Israel a colonial state or colonial proxy, actually doesn't do the whole thing properly. Like it doesn't do it justice, which is to say like that, because it's something that I don't think that's ever existed before and never will, that this kind of weird hybrid dependency, and also like political control, economic, whatever, like these two countries are deeply, deeply linked. And this linkage is now working in effect to topple the greatest enemy of them in this region, right? Which is Iran, right? Iran is the bulwark. So Adnan talks about agency, which of course we laugh about because liberals and their love of agency. But here's the thing, agency, and which is another, and at the national level, we call it sovereignty, right? Like when nations do it, they call it sovereignty, but it's basically like a form of agency, national agency, whatever you want to call it that. But we know that this is a rare thing, right? Sovereignty is not common, right? A few states have it, and then the rest of them pretend, a lot of them pretend to have it, and then the rest of them are just like, whatever, we're just a crony nothing state. So what's happening right now is the Iranians are pushing into, are exploiting a contradiction, which is the US wants to be the all-powerful, all-dominant military power in the region. It needs to have a backup squad for its Jewish colonial state that can't, it's not enough to just have it on one state. It has to have a ring of bases, and they have an excuse called countries like the UAE, like Dubai, like Bahrain, which are just an excuse to put up countries which are led by quisling leaders who do the bidding of the West. Right? All of this is to say is that this is the immense weak spot of the US empire. Like Iran has parked itself in the Achilles heel of the US empire. Like it's not, oh, look who's here. Oh my God. Hi. Look who's here, everyone. Nora.
Hi.
Hi. You interrupted me. I was monologuing. Actually,
Sorry.
Nora has
you missed my private message clearly, Sina, where I was like, leave it as a surprise, but you did anyway.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry. I didn't see that. Oh, and I muted poor Nora. Okay, I'm just gonna put myself back in the center. Oops, I don't know why I did that. Okay, hi. So this is all I wanted to say is that like the way to look at this is not like Iran and Israel doing war, Iran, Israel, America. This is a this moment that we're in, I mean, it's a continuation of June. I'm beginning to sort of connect the two now. I'm realizing that June may have been a trial run for whatever this is. That the idea that maybe June was, I keep thinking that, like, I'm trying to keep thinking, like, making sense of all this. And I've said this on a couple of streams now. But the idea that, they went through all of this pain, right? Like they are going through pain, like the Zionists and the imperialists, they are going through pain. They're taking a lot of hits. Like I just saw a video from the desalinization plant. Okay. Like it's a sensitive country that doesn't have like depth, right? And so when you hit it in its vital resources, what can it do? Right? Like when Iranians hit the refinery, the Bazan refinery, someone had to provide them with gas, right? Like you can't with refined fuel. So I'm pretty sure they had to get like a US tanker to fuel the country. I can't remember. I have to look into it. But essentially, like this is not a powerful country. This is something that you have. It's not, well, what is the Zionist entity? Okay. Is it a powerful country? Yes. What does that power rest upon? A very sensitive connection to its imperial sort of, let's say, source, which is the US, and underneath the US, a whole ring of countries. And and of course, that's why you have to have things like Epstein. Because how else can you coordinate this without a global honeypot like operation to keep, like a whole army of political and corporate elite under their leash through blackmail, which is like what the Epstein op openly was. But I think that this is going to unfold in one of two ways. I feel that this just goes on for weeks, right? That like this goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Although that's even me saying that out loud, I'm confused because they don't have the munitions to fire to keep this up. Like Iran is already pounding them hard. So either they're waiting to deploy some super weapon at some specific time, which they should have done by now, because what are you doing if you have that? Or this was a desperate attempt on the part of a losing entity that doesn't know what to do with itself, that has poisoned the well from which it draws its own legitimacy, right, with its actions. Because on the one hand, they thought, okay, fuck around, find out, Palestinians, we're going to now do genocide to you, and it's going to unite our society. And to do that, to unite our society, we're going to get our goon troopers to film themselves doing the crimes that are so heinous, and then we're going to broadcast them to the whole world as a flex to show you and the people around you that look how crazy we are. Look how insane we are. Look, we don't get anyone. We're not afraid of anyone. We will do all the worst things to you because it's better to be crazy than to be weak, right? Like that's the like Zionist military of whatever fucking doctrine that they have. It's to like be insane. But here's the thing. You're being insane with a country that's literally more than 10 times your size. Iran is 92 million people. Okay, it's 90, 92, 90, 89, something around there. It's multiple factors the size of the entity. And the entity, remember, when we say this, like, it has millions of people in it, it has millions of people in 2 cities. Okay, that's it, 2 cities. So, like, this is not a country that has profound depth. And so, to provoke a war with a much bigger enemy, obviously, you need the U.S. as the backup, and that's what this is. And but you also need depth, because they're going to hit you back, and that's exactly what's happening. So for me to think about, like, how this unfolds, it's like, okay, this goes on, and then they keep getting hits, and we don't know. Someone is in the chat is saying the Pentagon gamed it out: 13% attrition, 12 years, and $3.4 trillion to fight Iran. So that's, like, this is really their match. And of course, I don't see this happening, because the U.S. is not in the position it was to sustain this kind of thing. That I don't feel, I am, like Adnan, not as panicked as I was the first time. Adnan and I did an episode during the 12-day war, and I was, like, visibly like, But this time around, I mean, I was shocked. I mean, I wasn't shocked, because we all knew it was coming. But just the brazenness of these people. They murdered, I think, what's the count now of the school? It's over 100? I think it's 150.
Last I heard, it was like 105. Maybe it's more than that. Yeah.
Well,
It's
total civilians, a little bit above 200.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm curious. Well, we should keep going around the horn, because we should finish. But this is not. This entity cannot do what it wants to do. This is the take home point of what I wanted to get to. This entity cannot do what it wants to do without the participation and the acquiescence and the assistance of the Iranian people. And I believe that there are just not enough Iranian fascio traders to do that work. And it's not going to be like Syria, where they spent months flying, like, just bringing in rats from all around the world to fight the dirty war. It's not going to work like that. The Iranian state is far better equipped. It's 10 years. It's not 2011 anymore, 2010. Technology has changed. Iranian state apparatus, like security apparatus, is not some weak, backwards, poor, that it has the ability to find people who are, find the ability to, at least to some degree. Obviously it can't, with the evidence of what the Israelis have done with sabotage around the country, that you can't. And I don't think any security service could stop what the Israelis do. But here's the thing, it's not enough. It's not enough to kill Khamenei. It's not enough to, like, blow up some missile cities. You either have to go there and occupy the city, at which point they will all be murdered the moment they step even towards the country, or you hope that state collapse. You hope you can induce state collapse. And I think that was the original plan earlier in January, when we saw the ISIS attack. When that didn't work, they had to readjust their plans, and they had to push.
They just said it 2 days ago. They said our job is to create chaos and have it come undone from within. They just said that.
Which is how it worked in Syria to a degree. I mean, Syria, it took them a huge amount of military work, and it was a coalition, which they don't have now, right? Like, the Gulfies are scared, right? The Gulf can only provide intel. And even then, the Gulf doesn't do anything. They don't supply fighters. They don't do anything. They don't supply money to this project. They can't. Because if Iran catches them, then you have to that Iran is going to be beside them forever. Iran can't be moved away from Bahrain. Bahrain is a tiny speck of nothingness, ruled over by extremely unpopular monarch, over Shias, millions of Shias over them in the room, who look to Iran as, like, a cultural, like, beacon, and be like, oh, Iran, that's a place where our people are matter, we have some value. So, like, this whole thing that Zionists are saying about it's not a military option, it's a rescue operation, is infinitely more true about the countries of the Gulf, who are, like, especially Bahrain, where you have them cheering on, like, military strikes on American bases occupying their land. So, like, all of this is to say that this expansionist moment of the U.S. empire that it's spent 40 years building up, I think. I mean, Gulf War I was 40 years ago, right? 30 years, 40 years. Yeah, it's Gulf War I's 40 years ago almost now. Yeah. Oh no, sorry, 30 years, 35. So, and that was when they first occupied Mecca, right? First occupied Saudi Arabia, right? Like, you had, that's when they built their first base. And so that, to me, is that this has been decades in the move, that this idea of getting Iran, which to them is, this is the holy grail of regime change. This, what is it? Real men go to Tehran is like the famous neocon phrase. So, anyways, that's enough of a rant for me. We should keep going. Nora, I think it's you. I'm going to spotlight you. So you can go. How are you doing, Nora?
Oops, sorry. How am I doing? I don't know. I haven't got a grip yet. It's been, I tried to stay up as late as I could last night just to see what was happening, and then woke up super early this morning. I mean, this was expected. And yet I'm always still so shocked and disgusted by who the Israelis and the US target first. It's always children. And I'm seeing what can only be described as maximum restraint by Iran. And these military targets that are part of the Western imperial apparatus in the region. I mean, it's, this is like, chickens coming home to roost, all those adages of what has been reaped will be sowed by Western imperial forces. I've been trying, everyone I've been talking to, on chats or in my household, and you're like, okay, so what happens next? And that, I think, is it's a big unknown. I think there's no precedent for this moment right now. I think we are in completely uncharted waters, and we're dealing with again the worst, most dangerous psychopaths that this world has ever seen. And of course, 2.5 years of impunity that Israel and the US and the European states have enjoyed in committing genocide in Gaza. I feel like there's no way we can predict. We have to be really, really careful about spreading the enemy's propaganda. I'm always reminded, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this yet, but of the points that Vassal al-Araj laid out for us before his martyrdom. Don't spread the enemy's propaganda. Beware of psychological operations. Wait to hear confirmation from the powers that are resisting these enemies. But it's hard, I mean, my entire Twitter feed and Telegram feed is just like this avalanche of news. It's hard to keep up with. It's meant to keep you kind of on your toes and unsettled and scattered. And so I think, I heed our comrade Lara's calls to, maintain a sort of psychic militancy in these times, especially, and remember what this is all about. This is about the liberation of indigenous peoples against Western imperial forces. And this is a war that, of course, was not necessary. But, Israel and the US provoke. That's all they know how to do, is destroy and provoke, and make it worse, so much worse for people. So I don't know. I'm kind of trying to still like gather my footing, and I'm just so ashamed. I'm ashamed. Again, this is like the through line, of the last 2.5 years, is just deep shame to be a citizen of this horrific pedophile rape colony that is assisting and breeding other pedophile rape colonies. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, hello, Nora.
And scene.
Yes, exactly. Adnan Sahtain, Siyam Maqbool, inshallah. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us, and Adnan for breaking your fast and doing everything today during Ramadan. I think it's also important to say this is happening during Ramadan, right? I mean, and that's not by chance. We've seen the ways that the Zionist state has aggressed upon Palestinians and Lebanese folks over decades during Ramadan, during when people are supposed to be congregating, at a time when they can sort of attack folks at the highest level, a time when they can sort of distract them from communal process and from the ways in which people ground and sustain themselves. So that's not by chance. But one thing that I'll sort of pick out from what everybody's saying is those of us in the region have sort of been preparing. I think, Jay, you were saying this, like Iran knew, and you know, I have family all across the Arab world, and I was getting messages around like potential lockdowns and an emergency state and all this sort of stuff that was coming into being. We also know that the Zionist entity bombed Lebanon before it started this. So this is the sort of thing we have to keep in focus, is what's the larger plan for the region that has been ongoing for, 25 plus years. And I think that's the piece here. And this is not to take away from the current moment, but it's for us to constantly understand the larger and geopolitical analysis and what the United States empire has been very clear on for decades about reorganizing and reconfiguring what the so-called Middle East looks like. And this is the last hurdle for them in many ways, right? If we go down the line and we see what's happening. So Sina was saying, like, that Iran is hitting the Achilles heel. It's just like one thing to focus on, folks. And I'm saying this not because we don't know this, but because of the level of propaganda and the way that it's mainstream news sort of positions this, is Iran is not the intruder to our region, okay? It's the bases that are around and the GCC sort of allowing empire's bases to be there, partially because they are corrupt leaders and they don't give a fuck about Arabs, but also because of United States hegemony and blackmail that these sorts of things happen. But this is what we need to continue focusing on. Iran is not the intruder in the region. Iran is part of our region, right? And that's the thing we need to continuously come back to. So one of the things I've been struck by today is the United States for decades has been saying, Iran's going to do this, Iran's going to do this, Iran's a threat, Iran's a threat. Well, it hasn't been, right? All the lies and all the myths and all the ways in which the construction of Iran as singularly the most dangerous state in our region, despite the continuous and constant aggression of the Zionist state as supported by US empire and interventionism across these 25 plus years, Iran has actually not done this. Leading up to this, now, one of the things that I want to also say is to tie in what Iran has also said, that the liberation of Palestine is central to this. Tawafan al-Aqsa was what started in Gaza, and the Iranian state is calling this Khatam al-Tawafan. And Khatam meaning the end, wrapping up, right? The seal of things. So it is very clear also about what this means and how it ties into the larger region and how our liberation runs through Al-Quds, it runs through Jerusalem. And it runs through Jerusalem because of Zionist aggression that's supported by US imperialism. That is very clear. And we have to sort of continuously be precise about why this is coming up right now for the last 2.5 years that's happening. And to not forget, by the way, the miscalculation that happened. Of course, Mossad supported intervention not even a month ago in Iran that sets up the stage for folks in their mind and their sort of colonial machination sort of thinking. This is going to now allow the entire global sort of view of Iran so that people can cheer on what is happening right now. Many of us knew this is what was happening. This is why I think we were enraged by certain academics that, you know, were pro US interventionism or beating the war drum, precisely for this reason. When our enemies tell us what they want to do and why, and have been doing it for 25 years, the invitation for us is to not go somewhere else. It's to believe them and understand that anything that's coming up right now is also a way, I mean, Nora was saying a sort of chickens coming home to roost, but it's also a way in which this wager is being made, not by Iran, but by all the states that surround it. They're the ones who made the wager to allow for US bases to be built on their land, right? And to be used as a launching site for empire's violence against our entire region and people at our expense, at the expense of our people. That doesn't come without a risk. You don't get to invite the vampire in and then be like, oh, it's sucking on my neck and draining me of blood. Like,
to be fair, though, they didn't have a choice in any of this. They're just vassals.
Oh, like, I mean, sure. Okay. That is what US empire does. But that is the point, is to say, is this, at what point is the price too high? At what point do you say that actually having bases here is a fundamental threat, not only to the region, but to the safety of your own citizens, to everything you hold dear? You care about capital and capital flow into your rotten states. This is not the way to do it. Like, making a deal with the biggest empire of the world that doesn't care about you, that will exploit every single position, and its proxy that also is waging an expansionist war that continues even till last week. The centrist person saying, yes, Greater Israel is what we're going for. This wasn't even Netanyahu's cabinet that was saying this. This is the reality principle that's involved in this. And I think part of what I want to keep focused on is for us to repeat over and over and over again what the political wager is, what the Arab state, the GCC states have actually signed up for. What are the ways to disrupt that? I watched a video today of Karma George Abdullah saying, our attack needs to be ideologically and have our position as much against the US empire as, for example, Saudi, because they're the ones who are also allowing for this to happen. If we are aligned against imperialism, it has to be all the ways in which and against who is allowing imperialism to sort of proliferate and be the guiding framework in our region. So right now, if you're looking at Lebanon, they're also not only just annexing the south, but actively talking about annexing the north as well and reconfiguring everything. So all these things tie together. So when we're talking about what's happening in Iran, I really want to sort of stay us against the imperial desire and intent to dislocate Iran from the entire region. Right. And it happens really smoothly, both in terms of how people talk about it, a separation of that, the evocation of the regime or whatever else happens. But when you are doing that, you're actually joining the imperial machinations to make it to make it seem like Iran's the intruder on the region. It's not. I'm sorry. That Iran belongs in our region. And it's the empire and its basis and the Zionist settler state that's the intruder. So that's what I'm sitting with, folks. And I'm glad that we have this today to be able to kind of work through it publicly too.
So we can just open it up now. I did want to post something to get your view. I want everyone, I just want us to sort of recognize like where we are in the state of the US empire, because like this is the US empire. Like this is the current state of the US empire. Like they have circled around this man who is dying every day. I mean, we're all dying every day, okay, but he's rapidly dying every day. they have this aging fascist psychopath game show host whom right-wing fascistoid Epstein freaks turned into president, okay? Like that culture war we were fighting in the 2000s and 2010s, it was priming the pump for a guy like this to take power. And so like that's something to me that like this is how empires crumble, when you like seek recourse to do this stuff. And like whoever got Trump into the, I mean, we know who did, like Sheldon Adelson was a huge boom. He actually gave him the phrase "Make America Great Again." That was like Sheldon Adelson's whatever thing, or at least that's part of the lore. And he also funded it. And the wife is still funding it now. And Israel Hayom, which is their newspaper, is one of the most fascistic of all. So what's happened is the fascist, someone just said this in the chat, like right now, Israel, the right wing is the center. Okay, that's the center. The center is right wing. The rest of the country is fascist, right? The other is actual fascist, like blood, like mouth frothing, paranoid, murderous fascists. Like you see videos of, say, like Zionists in New York City being confronting a protest. These people want to murder the protesters. You can tell. Like you can tell there is a deep rage and sickness in them, that they just want, they hate the fact that their enemies exist, and they want to see their enemies not exist anymore. And they want to watch, and they want to film it, and they want to flex on each other. And Zionists have maybe realized that this doesn't exactly make you friends with the rest of the planet, because as much as like their worldview rests upon their own racial superiority, they still are not actually racially superior. Like you're not, I hate to break it to you, like Jewish Zionists, you're not better than the rest of us. A lot of you are actually much weaker than the rest of us, because you're, sickly and inbred. Like that's not like, this is not like an easy thing to overcome, needing other human beings. Okay, you need other human beings in this world. And if you treat other human beings as garbage, as you treat them as expendable garbage, as goyim, as goy cattle, which is what they say openly, because racism is all they have, then the world will turn on you. Then the Thai restaurateurs who feed your stupid Polish ass when you're on vacation to do whatever stupid sex crimes you're doing, like that guy is going to poison your food with like rotten milk, and you're going to shit for the next 4 days, and it's going to ruin your fucking vacation. Like that's one, the world will resist, and it is resisting this machine. And Iran is the leading vanguard of that resistance. That's the thing. Like nuking Iran, figuratively nuking, although they do want to literally nuke Iran. But like nuking the Iranian problem, nipping this into the bud, nipping the Iran problem in its bud, like this is the dream of the imperialist. It solves so many problems that they cannot solve without doing this. Right? Not only the resources, does it open up the resources, but it also corners out China from a major energy ally. Right. And so this is not, Iran is the question of Iran's future is not even about Iran. It's not even just for Iranians. Like it's for the planet. Iran is the intersection between two world systems. One is a dying world system that unfortunately Iran is stuck in, because the American world system has been the only world system for the last 30 years. And so they're stuck in it. So like, when Americans hit the sanctions button in the 2010s, just look at the GDP of Iran. It just goes like that, right? It just goes like that. But here's the thing. You watch the videos today. Guess what Iran is doing to the GDP of Qatar? Guess what Iran is doing to the GDP of the fucking UAE? Like these states rests upon like this very thin thing. And so I don't know. Anyways, I can stop ranting. Adnan, go ahead. We can just throw it open.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to pick up on where you just were and things that Lara mentioned, because I think it's very important to recognize that what we're seeing in this moment is the, Iran is basically like the pivot point right now for the war for greater Israel, right? That's what they're, attempting to achieve with their war, which is the remaking of the Middle East, going back, to Netanyahu and people with the, JINSA and the PNAC, Project for a New American Century, they talked about the birth pangs of a new Middle East. That was supposed to happen with the Iraq War and the global war on terror. It didn't happen quite as they expected, but they did manage to go and destroy a lot of countries, Syria, Sudan, Libya, etc., and wreak devastation. But Iran has stood firm through all of this, despite the incredible sanctions regime, and they have made so much progress and strides in, being able to develop and defend themselves and have a sovereign path towards development, such that they are the chief challenge to Israeli hegemony in the region, like uncontested hegemony and dominance. And so that's why we're having this war for greater Israel. But we could have in these contests, this is why I'm not so depressed, in this moment, is because this is also an opportunity for a different Middle East. As Lara said, Khatam at-Tufan, it's completing the Tufan. The flood is continuing, and it may wash away not only the Zionist entity, but all those corrupt family monarchies and dynasties of the Gulf. That is what has been unleashed now, is the possibility. And you saw those videos. Everyone has seen those videos of people in the streets of Bahrain cheering for the bombs, for the drone strikes. Udrub, udrub, udrub. We saw that one. And Trita Parsi was like, I think this might be them celebrating, apparently. Of course they're celebrating. They're saying strike, hit it. And as soon as it hit it, they're cheering because they want an end, not only to their subordination to the Zio-American empire, but to their own corrupt monarchy. We remember 2011, they almost overturned, this, their prince and whatnot. And it was only because the US gave the green light for the Saudis to send in their troops to brutally repress these protests and uprising, which is what it requires. So in some sense, we have to think these are not sovereign entities, as everyone has been saying. And in fact, actually, I took great joy at seeing Saudi Arabia put out its statement declaring, condemning the attacks on the sovereignty of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, and the other GCC. It's a joke. And so I tweeted back, you don't have any sovereignty.
Now they care about Qatar, right? Saudi now cares about Qatar's sovereignty.
Or the UAE. They're also involved with them. But they don't, they don't have any sovereignty to protect, because they said nothing about an actual sovereign nation, which is why they're under attack. An actual sovereign nation in Iran that is under attack because it is sovereign, and because with that sovereignty, they have refused to bow to Zio-America and abandon the Palestinian people. That is the only reason this is happening to them, is because they have not and will not abandon the people of Palestine. So these are totally connected, like Lara was saying. You don't get, and that, I don't know if that's actually the name. I've heard that it's True Promise 4, but I've seen Khatam at-Tufan, and that's what I'm adopting as, that's the real meaning of what this could possibly be happening. And the last thing I want to say is, just as Nora said, don't repeat all of this like panicked, propaganda. Oh, the Israelis claim they're 90% sure that they, attacked and killed, assassinated, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. We don't have confirmation, but even if it happened, this is how he wanted to die. He's 86. You saw the video. You should play it, Sina, where he talks with a young boy who says, I want to be a martyr. He says, hang on, young fella. Be good. Go study, become an engineer, help your country, live till 80, 90, then go be a martyr. Well, that's what he did. Ali Khamenei did that. His country is in a stronger position because of his leadership, and he will have appointed somebody to replace him. And they may find that they would have wished for the moderation and the conservatism and restraint of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, because they may get somebody to succeed who decides, you know what, I'm going to reverse that fatwa about not having a nuclear weapon because Iran is under existential attack by the empires of the West. It is actually now lawful under Islamic law. They don't know what they're going to get with the next generation. In the same way, they killed all those IRGC through those assassination attacks in June. The next generation is going to have no, and does have no illusions. They were prepared this time. They didn't take these negotiations, even though they took them seriously. They were not, lulled into, unawareness by it. So this next generation of IRGC generals and fighters, they might be much tougher than those who were used to, kind of this kind of strategic restraint. This is a different era. This may be a different world. Let's do our part. That's what I want to figure out, is what can we do? What is our part in this, in helping build the new world that is coming? It could be, the greater Middle East. It could be Marco Rubio's vision of colonization again, a 19th century white supremacist, kind of Europe's Western civilization should go recolonize the world. Or it's the end of this whole thing because, we rally together. So I say right now, China, now is the time. Take Taiwan. I say to the Latin American, countries in the Bolivarian revolution, now's the time to break the siege of Cuba. The U.S. is trapped in this, war. It's going to suffer, and it's weakening. Accelerate the weakness. Now is the time you can accomplish these things. This war is about those two systems, Sina was saying, but the pole of the other system is China. So China, now is the time. Make sure Iran doesn't fall. I think they've been helpful from what I, hear and understand. But also, this is all directed at trying to weaken and limit you. So be a sovereign nation and do what you have to do. That's what I would say right now. There's a chance to remake this world for the better.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
He's here. Oh my God! Everybody's coming. It's
nice.
Tankie Therapy boot down.
Mikey.
Hey, Mikey. Good to see you, man.
I mean, yeah, in that vein, Adnan, I'm also thinking, of course, about Gaza, and how now is the time for regional actors, for resistance factions to do what they can in order to defend Gaza. I mean, Israel just reimposed a total, complete siege on Gaza earlier today. So, what little foodstuffs and like knickknacks really that were coming in on the trucks is now gone again, and of course the settlers are going on accelerated rampages in the occupied West Bank. They're spraying herbicides in southern occupied Syria. They are bombing the hell out of southern Lebanon. And of course it's being all shadowed by what's happening in Iran. But now is the time too to redouble efforts in whatever way possible to defend Palestine. It's a terrifying moment, obviously, but I agree that there are opportunities that arise when the enemy is on the back foot and when they have too many cooks in the kitchen. I'm like going on a total like idiom rampage today. I'm so sorry for that. I'm sorry for everything, but this is also a strategy, right? Like when the enemy is on the back foot, when they are embroiled in too many wars or aggressions or campaigns of theft and colonization. That's when resistance forces have a good chance of counterattack. So I don't know. I'm just like, I don't want Palestine and Lebanon to be forgotten in all of this, because that's also what Israel and the US are counting on.
Before
You're
Mikey,
muted.
before Mikey, we bring you on. I just want to play something because it makes me happy. Okay, so that was from Bahrain. Okay, that was from Bahrain. That's a U.S. base. I think it's already on fire before it gets hit with another flying lawnmower. The U.S. empire spends hundreds of millions of dollars on these bases, right? It has all their toys, all their fancy pants things that like the rich kid has. And Iranians used a flying lawnmower, right? You heard the sound. Okay, it's called people call it a flying lawnmower for a reason, because of how loud they are. Because the sound is kept loud, the way the Zionists keep the sound loud in Gaza, Iranians have also kept the sound loud as a message to their enemies to be like, oh look, this thing that we're sending to you, which cost us, I think it's like 30,000. I think a Shahed drone is 30,000, maybe even cheaper, depending on which one, depending on the variant. Like this thing just cost you a $15 million whatever radar dome or some bullshit. Like all the toys that the U.S. empire has to have to connect its like vast Hot Wheels empire, right? Remember Hot Wheels? Remember how complicated it was to set up those things? You remember how it wouldn't work though if one little part wasn't connected properly? That's the thing, right? We are now in this situation where Iranians can disentangle this web of U.S. Military industrial complex that's taken over this region, that they've spun over top of this region using the vassalized Arab monarchy pedocracy states as the sort of washing mechanism to sort of, but also those states are also useful because they buy U.S. hardware, and this is like how the U.S. funds itself, right? Like there's a school of thought that says like even the Saudis, after their first disastrous foray into Yemen in 2015, I want to say, like they didn't want to keep going. And if they stopped though, like the U.S. would take away the U.S. would just end the monarchy, right? Because it's not up to them. So the states that we're talking about in all this, they're vassalized. I mean, Saudi Arabia exists because of Eisenhower. Wasn't it Eisenhower or was it Truman? It's Truman or Eisenhower, one of them. Like there's a picture of it being born. There's no picture of Iran being born. Iran is 5,000 years old. Saudi Arabia, like there are cars older than Saudi Arabia. There's this is not a special place that has some deep relevance to our land. Like these countries can come and go. The real ones know what's up. Right? Like these oil states are all there because the US and before that, the British Empire guaranteed their safety, right? But that safety is gone now. That's what's, to me, the Gulf is never coming back. The GCC, all this Gulf stuff is to avoid saying the word Persian, by the way. So I like to call it the PGCC, but P stands for pedophile. So it's like this system that they have in there is very, very sensitive. And Iranians said, "Oh, did I just destroy your little imperial network there? Sorry. Here's some old munitions that we fired off with our eyes closed. Deal with those for a second." And then the big boys were coming. So anyways.
Okay, but it's also because, can I just say, it's because the United States empire lies. It lies and it blackmails and it says, if you have bases here, you will be more safe. But we know they don't give a fuck. And I want to say that most of the people on the ground across the GC states understand and are overwhelmingly pro-Palestine. I'm not going to talk about Dubai here, but overwhelmingly pro-Palestine. They don't believe in United States interventionism. They understand that they are actually at more risk with the base being there. And that is why you are seeing, it's not a surprise that from Bahrain, majority Shia place that is ruled, but that is completely subsumed by a non-Shia leadership, are the ones who understand what that sort of repression looks like. And it's precisely because they are allied with empire at the expense of their own people. And that's the piece that we need to sort of keep saying, is that the United States actually doesn't keep people safe. They don't give a fuck about this. Most of their radar systems don't even work. Qatar is being bombed the fuck out of. Nobody gives a fuck about the people there. People are pissed. They're pissed off because the very presence of empire actually makes them less safe. And the presence of empire is there to secure the presence of the Zionist state at the expense of all Arab peoples. And people get that. And I think we need to support people on the ground who understand this is what's happening and who understand that the biggest threat, unlike what these fuckers in the United States are saying, or Carney is saying, that the biggest threat is United States interventionism and its Zionist lackey. Welcome, Mikey.
Yay. Oh, great to see y'all. Great to see all of these videos coming out from all the vassal states. Yeah, and to hear just the people on the ground celebrating. Speaking to that recent point, yeah, like the US is basically just the world's largest protection racket, right? Like it's kind of like late season Sopranos. And it's with these countries, it's like, it'd be a shame if something were to happen to your little vassal state, right? And I'm just look the other way while I'm walking out with this espresso machine, and we're seeing like even the promise of protection with the implication of threat. We're seeing now, like in every one of those vassal state countries in the region, that even the promise of protection is not being borne out, right? And I think one of the most amazing things was seeing like, yeah, that $30,000 Shahid drone, just obliterate $250 million worth of U.S. military hardware in the blink of an eye, right? And that's the kind of infrastructure that doesn't easily get built back up, and I think the U.S. military industrial complex is so bloated and so spread thin. Like they recently reported that with like the dramatic increase in the defense budget, they don't know how to spend it, right? But even in the event that they have all these new make work projects now, right? It's going to take years to rebuild a lot of this infrastructure, and I don't know if they're going to have the local support or the political will to do so. But I think also, yeah, just seeing all of those places being retaliated on at the same time, like in real time, and just seeing it, across multiple social media feeds, I think is one of the biggest blows to USPR in a long, long time, like probably since like the last days of the war in Iraq, right? Like just like seeing that paper tiger, in its paperiest forms, just be penetrated in multiple areas. I think it'll be really kind of like galvanizing for a lot of people, and hopefully start a lot of nascent resistance movements in places like Bahrain. We'll see. I mean, Bahrain already has a recent history of resistance too, so maybe this will be an inspiration to get things moving again, and like Chase said, inspire 2-3 many more Vietnams. and I guess we'll see. But it was interesting.
Yeah. Can I play a video? Can I just play a video to that point? Here, hold on.
Please do, yes.
This was filmed from the Entity today from a Chinese tourist.
看到啊，起烟了没有？航母被炸了啊！看看啊，航母被炸！哇塞，航母被炸了啊！看看啊，看到没有？看见了吧？这航母被炸了啊！哎呦，我说话都不会说了，现在被吓。哇塞！哎呦哇塞，这航母被炸了啊！看看啊，看那个浓烟了没？在海里面炸到航母旁边啊！看看啊，美国是航母炸的地方。哎呦哇塞！哇！哎呦，航母被炸了啊！看看啊！
Also, yeah, it's been a while since I've heard the Oh, whoa. Imole.
Can we just play that again because it made me so
Yow.
happy? That's an American ship on fire. Okay, according to this, a Chinese tourist in Tel Aviv captured footage of a U.S. military support ship being hit by an Iranian missile, with thick black smoke billowing out, confirming rumors from Iranian military reports of strikes concentrated on American vessels. I mean, guys, this is day one. We are
it's important to say also that Israel, the so-called greatest democracy in the Middle East, has a strict censor on anyone taking videos or photographs of the impact of Iranian missiles. So to get this out is actually a feat.
Yeah, they can't seem to stop themselves either. Yeah, the Israelis are still posting shots of the Iron Dome failing repeatedly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
While they do yoga in a fucking bunker.
Oh, God. Yeah. And
that Palestinians are not allowed into.
That's right. No, Palestinians are not allowed into the bunkers.
All of the kind of speculation and kind of like leaked reports that Israel and the US's interceptors are basically depleted, I think, is being borne out by what we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
Like very little missile defense is coming, and that's also really makes US and Israel like really on the back foot, and just revealing how vulnerable they are right now. And I don't, if Israel has like a position on like whatever beyond their stated position, right, like might be on like making, going forward with this attack, I really do wonder like whether there was any hesitation, or like whether they were just kind of like doing what Trump felt pot committed to do, or whether yeah,
who knows.
Adnan, I'm curious if you have, for folks who don't know the significance of Purim, do you have anything you could share on that for folks?
Well, sure. Lara said, that it is significant that this is happening during Ramadan. I mean, from that perspective, and I did tweet about it, that if we really recognize the meaning of Ramadan, this should be made a grave error for the empire that they attacked during Ramadan. If, Muslims will actually take the real message of the fast. So there is that component. But what I understand is that, and there's been a lot of, activity in Israeli kind of media and social media and things talking about how this resonates with the upcoming holiday of Purim, which, if people recall, is, in the book of Esther, is this commemoration of a situation where the Jewish kingdoms were threatened by the big bad Iranian Achaemenid empire, particularly an evil minister, Haman, who, wanted to destroy them. But thankfully, and I'm forgetting the name of the Jewish member, either wife or member of whatever is the word for harem in the pre-Islamic era, but was a Jewish princess, kind of who intervened. She was in the Shah's, harem, essentially. And it ends with basically kind of a miraculous case where like 75,000, I believe, is the biblical number, enemies of the Jewish people end up being slaughtered. And so, this is a kind of geopolitical religious holiday that resonates closely with this idea of kind of Iran. Of course, it does have this 5,000 years of history of statecraft and diplomacy, and so making a connection between the biblical episode that around which a religious festival is being marked right at this time, that the beginning of this war on the terrible, evil Iranian empire happens. And my understanding is that this isn't just coincidental. This attack has been planned for months. The date, I understand, according to some reports, had been established weeks ago. And part of the evidence of it is that, of course, Ro Khanna's motion or resolution in the House to actually require, kind of war powers, thing was, he was convinced to put it off to next week by various kind of people, partly it seems because some of these people knew that the date was this weekend, and this would allow the administration not to have to come to Congress for permission like they would have bothered anyway. But even so, it just shows that this might have been timed to come close to and resonate with this festival, right? And I think the real point here, though, is that we all recall the Huckabee interview with Tucker Carlson, where he basically articulated the kind of evangelical Christian apocalyptic vision. I think they see this war with Iran, they and apocalyptic Jewish, Zionists, with the Christian Zionists, collaborate essentially on thinking that messianic times are at hand, and that Armageddon and subsequently the rapture and all of these wonderful, things culminating and fulfilling kind of biblical salvation history in the apocalyptic frame, are to be triggered and precipitated by war on Iran, right? So it seems to me that when we talk about who's the crazy, irrational theocracy in the region, it isn't Iran, that has worked with great rationality, history of diplomacy, negotiations, did everything that they could in this sense to give Trump an off-ramp, a face saving. He could claim it was better than the JCPOA because they got more concessions out of the enrichment program and protocol and so on. It's that this is a sick, twisted, crusader empire that doesn't act on reason for the world, but only out of supremacist domination and a death cult of domination. I mean, that's why they, are doing what they're doing. So quite apart from, how Purim might resonate with them, it's part of a larger kind of frame in which contemporary historical events are seen through an apocalyptic prism by the true rulers, the true drivers in some sense of these events, like Christian evangelical Zionists and extreme apocalyptic Jewish Zionists kind of collaborate together in that vision. Of course, they're all just being manipulated by the Epstein class, which I agree. I like that term very much, Jared. I think it truly captures what we're talking about at this moment.
Can I also just say that
I just want to play Mohammed Randi.
Oh, so, yeah. I just want to play another video because this is actually spectacular in a way. I mean, spectacular violence, sure, but
and then I want to say something about Purim.
Oh wait,
Sina.
Is this it? Oh, I think.
What the fuck?
What the fuck? See, that's the thing. These, like, there's such a historical in all of this. It's like they got used to stomping on ants, these imperialists, and now they finally ran out of easy fights. They ran out of easy fights. They can't do any more easy fights. Maduro was just something they could do to steal away one more easy fight and get a nice easy W, but that's it. Anyways, Lara, you wanted to talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was saying to bring it back to Palestine. First of all, anytime you see any hits on the Zionist state and you see how people go into literal hysterics, you can sort of shoot through the shit about the fact that they're under attack constantly or under threat, because those of us who actually live under Zionist bombs know what bombs sound like and know how far they are and what they are and all these sorts of things. People who don't get it or don't know where it is are people who have never had those bombs fall on them. So that's number one. But number two, to go back to Purim, is that to tie it back to Palestine, every year during Purim, there are settler riots. Every single year through Al-Quds and Jerusalem, where they march through the streets and chant death to the Arabs, and we're going to piss on the Nabi and all these sorts of things. They tag everything. It has become, they storm Al-Aqsa Mosque. So this is not new. The last time Stephen and I were in Palestine, we were having to go through, they close the checkpoints whenever they fucking want. They'll stop it whenever they want to stop up. They use it as an excuse to allow maximum damage to happen and for them to put Palestinians back in their place and tell them we have full control of everything. And they use it under the specter, you're an ethno-nationalist state and a theocracy. So of course you're sort of saying, yes, this is what we're going to use. And settlers are the ones who run the shots. We were held up at gunpoint at the checkpoint, right? Because you don't know when they're going to fucking sort of close it down. So you walk through and you're thinking you're crossing a checkpoint. And then there are 3 soldiers in your face with machine guns right in your face. And they're telling you don't fucking move. But this is the excuse to terrorize people constantly. So this is just a larger scale extension of that. But it's the only logical extension of a settler colony that also wants to pretend, like Nora was saying, the so-called democracy in the Middle East that actually is about being an ethno-nationalist supremacist state that calls itself the Jewish state, that in its basic law says that Jewish people are supreme, that everybody else is beholden to that Jewish supremacy in the context of the Zionist settler state. So this is also not a surprise, again, to ground us back in Palestine and say everything we are seeing on a larger scale is something that Palestinians have endured for 75 plus years, that have been warning us, certainly in the South and Lebanon as well, that people have been saying this is precisely what is mobilized to allow this level of aggression to happen all the time. And now it's just a greater expansionist project. So for us to come back to that constantly is actually really important, because we're doing justice to the folks who have sacrificed themselves, who understand, who have been tracking this, and who get what the point of this larger project of settler colonialism, Zionist settler colonialism, is to begin with. I think Mikey was trying to say something, sorry.
Oh no, I was just trying to see if anyone knew the origins of the Epstein class phrase.
I think Jay knows.
I think it's Matt Andy.
Yeah,
Matt Andy calls the Epstein-Regime. That's
the Epstein-Regime.
Yeah,
It's kind of,
at first I didn't really know how to feel about it, because I was worried that it might kind of obscure kind of like class analysis, but I feel like it's actually perfect, because it really, like, if we keep using that phrase, it'll, I think, you really catch on as a crisis of legitimacy, and I don't like the conversations about like Trump just wanting to distract from the Epstein files, because that's obviously not just the only thing, but I think it bothers him quite a bit, especially if that becomes a moniker to describe not just his entire administration, but like all the aligned powers around it, that there's way more than 6 degrees of separation between Epstein and every one of these motherfuckers in power.
I like it too, because it also doesn't differentiate between Trump and the Democrats, for example. I mean, everybody's implicated. You know, Epstein is bipartisan. He worked with everybody, even people on the so-called left, right? So it really is a good way to kind of, like classify an amalgamation of what American empire is and who the ruling class really is. I like it.
It's definitely not something the libs can appropriate. So
no.
I wanted to play, speaking of Epstein colony, I want to play a video. Okay, so this is remember guys, they are trying to get people to come to live in this country. They're trying to uproot people. They're saying, come, move your lives, displace your children, like live.
Safest place for Jews,
yeah,
right?
Learn a new language, live around a bunch of like Russians and Ukrainians who you don't really like. And
pedophiles.
Lots of pedophiles. There are many, like
remember,
sex
how many millions of Zionists are here and don't move? So just think about that. Think about what that means, that there are ardent Zionists, but here, okay? Not in Zioland, but here. But I just want to play this. This is from the entity, okay? From the entity that feels no pain, that loves to inflict damage upon its enemies. Look, this is the first night.
אוטובוס שלם עולה באש. אוטובוס שלם עולה באש. מכוניות, אנשים. אני לא מאמין. 10 מטר מאיתנו יש פה אוטובוס עולה באש.
I'll never forget the thing that Mikey tweeted. He's like, why do they all sound like Mario Kart characters? Oh, eat shit, Zios. Eat shit. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, you haven't said anything in like 10 years. You go.
I'm just soaking it all in.
No, you've been spotlighted.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you guys have said really, everything that I would say. I think it's important. I've seen a lot of people from Gaza who have also been just struggling to get support for their campaigns right now. Also, just saying in this moment, like, don't forget about us. They're now closing our the little bit of aid that was trickling in is now totally shut off. And like Lara was talking about and Nora were talking about earlier, it's really important not to that we don't disconnect those struggles and that we don't there's a reason why they're doing that, right? Like they're doing that as a leverage point on Iran, right, and so on. And so I just think it's important folks continue to share those campaigns. Maybe we could share Muhammad's again, Sina, and that's one thing I would say. I also think that I think the discussion of the Epstein class or the Epstein regime, I think both of those terms should be used. We can use the Epstein class to keep some class analysis in it, Mikey, I think, but also the Epstein regime to understand. I think one of the things I like about it is not only that libs can't, get away with it, but also that it connects the United States and Israel as really one, seeing them as really one regime, which I think is the way that we should see them at this point, and not seek to try to spend too much time getting caught up in, who's leading who right now, right? Like it does it even matter at this point, right? They're one military, they're one, they're making decisions together, right? And they're operating together, right? And we should see them as, in that vein. And yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't have a lot. Obviously, my hope, my greatest hope is that Iran, prevails in a quite devastating fashion in this war. And, certainly one thing that we should say that I think is quite different from the 12-day war is that if folks remember in the 12-day war, not only were there a lot of images coming out of Iran of the devastation of those early attacks, which we haven't seen to that degree at all, but also it took Iran, I don't remember exactly how long, but at least, about 24 hour, a little while to really get things together and get into, significant retaliatory strikes. And I think the other point that was made about these images that are coming out, really right away from True Promise 4 is that one of the things that Iran has said is that they're now moving to their more high-tech, hypersonic, more sophisticated missiles. And I mean, I'm not a military analyst, obviously, but just based off of what we're seeing from these images, I mean, obviously we are seeing drones and things like that in certain locations, but we're also seeing, there's craters, right, in Tel Aviv right now and stuff like that. So we're seeing, more significant weaponry, I think, being used at a faster pace. And so, I don't expect this to be wrapped up quickly. I don't know, I don't want to make any kind of predictions, but I think that those are things that I've just been noticing. And, it does seem to me that all of the rhetoric around, these claims of decapitation of leadership, which are being rejected by, folks within Iran, that it's clear that it hasn't had the same impact that it did in the 12-day war, where not only was it that they were able to devastate some of the military infrastructure in the first blast, but they were also able to take out a lot of the military leadership in those first strikes. And that doesn't, if that's the case, they're managing it incredibly well. So it doesn't seem to be affecting their ability on the battlefield at all.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, no, I do want to say also too in all of this is that like that part of what happens over here in our part of the world is that the Zionist hexing of Iran makes it impossible to sort of rationally discuss it in a kind of in any productive manner. Like it's just so hard. And the first line of defense is mouth frothing diaspora freaks, compradores. But there's something more insidious, which is, how they basically erase the fact that Iran is a leading member of this, like, albeit minor minority tradition. I hate to put it like that, but it is the minor tradition within Islam of like the major traditions, is that Iran's role as I don't want to say leader, because that's wrong, because that's not the right word, because it's not like it was one unity thing, but it's more that Iran represents tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, there's 100 million Shia in the world. Of course there are. There's 90 in Iran alone. So like the Shias in the world look to Iran to a certain degree, not all, but look to Iran in a certain degree as a model of a place where, here we can, combine our religious tradition, which does have this political social justice core to it, despite what people may say that it has this social justice core that, Khomeini, for instance, was like a genuine populist. Like they were talking about like the oppressed classes. Like this is a liberation theology of sorts. That what's happening is that, but Shia Islam wasn't created to liberate people, but Shia Islam is a branch or one of the Islams. But the people practicing it generally seem to show less tolerance, let's say, of occupation and vassalhood. Now, is that true for all? Is that a true for thing all across the board? No. But it seems to be at least that some degree of radicalism is contained, of radical anti-authoritarian. Oh God, that's like a childish way of putting it, but a kind of like, let's say anti-repressive, or I don't know how I want to put it, but something. There's like, I want to say even social justice fails, but there is something to Shia Islam. So I want to play another video from Bahrain, which is an important state, which we never hear about because a deeply unpopular monarchy who doesn't reflect the majority of the population rules over it with a very iron fist. That, like what people say about Syria is under Assad is infinitely more true about Bahrain. But let's look at Bahrain for a second, okay? It's not destruction, it's the opposite. So I wanted to play that because it's beautiful, but also like to prove a point, which is like we are inundated with astroturfed images of people protesting. That's the reality. Okay, it's astroturfed as all hell. Okay, Zios have the ability to like we were saying, they had this Gusanos had these stupid rallies all across Europe, and they said, 200, and it was always this like game of how many people were there and all this bullshit. But like, you see, that's organic, what we just saw. You see, that's real. Like that radicalism, you can't just make that up. You can't just like get a PR firm in New York and pay a bunch of people to stand around and do that. It doesn't work. Human beings don't perform like that, even if you pay them. Like you can maybe get them to stand around. You can certainly get them to kill people for money. Don't get me wrong. We are shitty like that as a species. But like getting them to enthusiastically get together and sing and dance, like you can't just like you can't just like make that happen. Right? Like I watch these Iranian AstroTurf things and they're so fake as all fuck because you watch it closely. And I've been to many protests in my life, many, and you can tell when people's hearts are not in it. And these people's hearts in Bahrain right now, watching what Iran is doing to their own country, are cheering them along. Think about what that means. If you are a pedo Bahraini elite, what does that say about your rule? What does that say about your future in that country? When a much more powerful country, and to bring it back to Adnan's radical demand for China to take over Taiwan, like that, like this is not like the Chinese I'm predicting this. I don't think the Chinese will ever militarily take it over in the way we're imagining, like bombs. I think there will just be a day when Taiwanese people in large numbers just say, we're done with this vassal American occupation. We're done with this. And they will stop, and a huge number of them will come out and support, and China's right there. So like part of the reality here is that the U.S. it faces an extremely difficult situation where it has to enact its will against hundreds of millions of people, hundreds of millions of indigenous people against the wheels of their religion, against everything that goes against them. They have to enact it and make them watch as they genocide Gaza and take over Jerusalem and erase Islam from Jerusalem slowly. So you're expecting people to just sit there and take it. Right here in the West, we live under this insane, like philo-Semitic imperialist McCarthyism. So we can't say this stuff, but over there they don't. Right over there, they don't have to live under that. They're free of that shit. Now their states are going to come down and hunt them and shoot them in the back of the head. That's its own fear, mind you. But like this is not like the ability to stamp out these feelings. This is not an easy ask. And what's happened now is Iran represents a huge chunk of the planet in how much they want to see Israel get destruction. Like that video I played is making people happy all around the world of watching Israelis suffer one tiny fraction of what they dish out to like their enemies. So
Sina, I want Adnan to kind of jump in here because they're also chanting about Ahl al-Bayt and Hussein, and this is the point of being like this is a Shia, right? The Shia coming into the street in Bahrain who are under attack constantly and surveillance, by the way. But Adnan, could you just explain?
Because they're the majority of the population, I think, in Bahrain. If not, it's at least 50, but I think it's more like 60, 65, 70%.
I think it's like 80 or something.
Yeah, maybe it's even 80. It's only like
it is a majority,
or 20. Yeah. So, but they're ruled by a Sunni kind of dynasty and, one tribe. But what are they chanting? This is like one of the so-called passion plays, Tazia, but it's a joyful Tazia. Tazia is for grief, the martyrdom of Hussein. But what's happened with the radicalization and the transformation of Shiism into a radical, political, religious, anti-imperialist form of Islam is that the, martyrdom of Hussein is a tragic, thing that the hero should be sacrificed, but it's really tragic for us because we didn't do what we should have, which was to protect him, to defend him, and to support him. And what has happened is that energy that has been long, millennia and a half, there was that energy, because of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, has been transformed now into political, we will stand with you, Ya Hussein. We're going to take our time now in this moment to confront the Yazid, the oppressor who martyred, whose forces killed killed Hussein, who is the grandson of the Prophet, and in Shi'i tradition considered, the third, imam, kind of holy, pious leader to follow. That we're not going to let that happen now. They've turned it into a radical program for revolutionary action. So they are joyfully chanting Ya Hussein because they see themselves, and Marandi actually tweeted this, we are the nation of Imam Hussein. So they have connected with their history in a way that turned it from what it used to be. I mean, so Sina will say, and I'll let him, think that it's all just because of Shiism and its theology. It's not its theology. Its longer history was the Shi'i were quietists. They didn't, after Jafar as-Sadiq failed to, become the leader of the Muslims in the Abbasid Revolution in 750, okay, when there was this big tumult against the dynasty that had martyred Hussein, he said, well, let's turn towards religious cultivation. We have to accept this debased, corrupt world, and, we will cultivate, our spirit, and we will get ready and prepared. And then when the line of the 12 imams ended and the imam, the 12th imam disappeared, they developed the idea that, well, he is the rightly guided one who will come at the end of history. But until that time, the active struggle was sort of put on hold. It's a messianic kind of position. But what happened with the revolution is those messianic deferral energies, they said, no, the time is now. And we will create the change, So that's, I think, what's happening here is that across the, Middle East and Islamic world, the effects of the Iranian Revolution have been to transform the Shi'i orientation that used to be thought of as kind of apolitically quietist waiting for end times, is to say those end times can be these times and take that kind of energy into radical transformation. And so they are showing their kind of love for the Ahlul Bayt, which is what Lara was asking about, which is the family of the Prophet. Now, Sunnis also are supposed to, and do, many of them love the family of the Prophet. So I find that, in fact, actually talking about the Ahlul Bayt is in a way a kind of unifying call for a return to truly valuing the pious leaders and the traditions that could unite. And that was an important point. The Khomeini was not a sectarian in the way in which like previous generations were. He saw the revival of sovereignty for Muslims in the Middle East with the revolution as something that should spread to Sunnis, and he de-emphasized many of the practices of Shiism that was kind of divisive, like, kind of condemning the companions of Muhammad afterwards who didn't honor the family of the Prophet, right? He said, no, we won't do that because that divides us with the Sunnis. They may have been wrong, but we're not going to curse them in public, in this way. He did many things to try and say we should be connected and united as an ummah. One thing that kills me, what Lara had said before, Iran is part of the region. The forces, however, that have tried to make them alien are, both the Iranian monarchists, these diasporic, like people who want to be Aryans and think that if they could just get rid of the Islam, we would be like Europeans and recognized as white and we could be part of this supremacist kind of conclave. That disgusting and ridiculous fantasy is one that tries to take Iran out of the region of the Middle East. Oh, they're exceptional, they're separate, they're, Aryans, right? And the other side is the Sunni sectarianism that demonizes the Shia, these Iranian Shias, they're a foreign element and entity, they're heretics, and they cannot be integrated into the body of the Ummah. And it's this disgusting sort of thinking that feeds in to the colonial imperialist program of dividing and ruling this region by fabricating these divisions and exploiting them to weaken this region and turn it against oneself. So when I see those people in Bahrain chanting, it is, as Sina said, it's beautiful. And it's because it has a message of unity and of radical change and possibility. That's what they're celebrating.
Hell yeah, Adnan. Who wants to go next? Guys, we're hitting almost 2 hours. We got 15 minutes to 2 hours. Can we make it to 2 hours?
Is this an auction?
First, I just want to thank Adnan for breaking that down, and for the previous discussion on Purim as well. I mean, and all the other stuff that you guys have done. I mean, I think this is the value of us all, coming together and sharing these platforms and so on, because there's just an incredible amount of knowledge and amongst this group. So thank you so much. You can take me off the center now, Sina.
I guess we're in these last couple of minutes. I do want to also, if there's any, we should have done this long ago, but if there's any questions from the audience, we have a little bit of time. We could take some questions, but I don't know, guys. I feel better. I feel better after this conversation. I was driving for 5 hours today, and I just felt like, this again, like this fucking bullshit. But then you realize that this war has been going on for a long time. Like, this is a decades-long war, and there are hot and cold phases. But we are hitting one of the hottest phases, and it's 47 years in the making. I mean, when Iranians rose up in 1979, they rose up, they did this world historical thing, which you can't change that history. You can't undo that. You can't do Control Z and put the guy back in, like they're trying to now. The guy who specifically has said many times, I don't want to go back to Iran. This is all Zios have. Let me show you a picture of their fucking prince who is running everything for them. Where is he? Let me show you. This is their large son and savior. Imagine putting the future of your people on that face. Okay? Just imagine that. Imagine that's the guy. This room is where your sovereignty is being determined, ensured, underwritten. Okay? Imagine that decrepit murderer, racist, vile, rapist, pedo is their great hope. What does that say about the state of Zionism? What does that say about what they have? And then on top of that, they can't even do it the old-fashioned way, which is to bribe people into being on their side. They have to do crazy things like the Epstein honeypot, which is insane, and it's going to hurt them in the end because it came out. Because you put all those victims together, you leave a trail of destruction. And you use your soft power and institutional power to keep down any consequences of that. But that ran out. There were too many victims that eventually got together, and now it's been exposed. And this guy, Epstein, will always be associated with Israel. When people say Israel, they will say Epstein. And when people say Epstein, they will think Israel. Okay, you can't undo that. You can't just scream anti-Semitism at 80 decibels and that doesn't work to make that go away, right? And so I don't know. This is the Zios need the West, and the West is falling every day. This is the reality. And no amount of regime change in the region, right? Because that's what they think. They say, okay, if we can just enslave Iran, the way we have to Syria, Jordan, the various countries around them, Egypt, if we can just enslave this population to immiseration, which is their goal, right? You enslave them to the constant immiseration of life under neoliberalism as like a third-tier, rentier state, which is what they want, or like an oil, whatever, like they can extract the oil and just sell it off and refine it elsewhere and make money off of it. And then they can break off the country and create a Kurdistan, a Baluchistan, and whatever, like the way they did to the Soviet Union and what's happening to Ukraine now, by the way. Like this won't happen in Iran. This will not happen. They cannot do it. I am confident about that. So I guess, I asked for questions and I didn't take any. I promptly did not take any. Any questions? Are we good, man? The West has no Zionism in it. All the hackers.
While you're looking for one, I just would like to announce that tomorrow I'll be having a special emergency struggle session with Nina and Naveed Farnia on Iran. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern, Benji Schoendorf and David Yagoubian, who's a historian of modern Iran and the Middle East, will be joining me for a second stream. So do think of questions. If you haven't posted questions for Sina to kind of read and quickly, answer now, we'll have some great opportunities tomorrow. Everyone welcome to join. If you're not able to come, tell your friends, tell your comrades.
What else? Who else has got something to promote?
I'm doing a live stream tomorrow at 1 p.m. and it's going to be about Zionist interventionism in the academy, but it feels very, timely right now because of all the ways in which we need to fight at every level. If we're thinking about this as an expansionist project, the expansionist project is across the board, and it's called kicking power in the shins. And that's what we should be doing. We need to be focusing on all the ways in which we can disrupt power at every turn. It's with Michelle de Graaf and Maura Finkelstein. And certainly we'll be talking about what we talked about today too, and the implications of this and why we need to remain focused. And those of us who have positions or roles or are scholars or anything is not to think that somehow that's outside of the frame of what we're talking about. To the contrary, if we're going back to Vassal al-Araj that Nora was saying about before, it's about being an engaged intellectual. Like if we can't be engaged intellectuals or scholars right now, there's no fucking use for us. Right. And I'm okay saying that. If you're not sort of our comrade Ghassan Abu Sitta today put out a piece in Nahar with other folks saying the exact same thing, this is the time for politically engaged intellectuals. If there's one role that we have, if this is what we have to offer, we need to commit to that wholeheartedly. We need to remain unbendingly anti-imperialist. We need to remain unbendingly ethical in our analysis and our ability to have these conversations and distill this information so that folks are not losing, as we say in Arabic, right? That they're not losing the actual gist of things and what the actual core of the problem is, to remain committed to structural analysis. And that way we can make the links between Iran, Palestine, Lebanon, Cuba, Venezuela, Mexico. All the things that are happening right now need to be linked up. And you can't do that if you're not willing to be an engaged intellectual.
Hell yeah.
I'm in between helping to host screenings of Earth's Greatest Enemy by Abby Martin and Mike Preisner. And last night on Hawaii Island, while I was facilitating the Q&A, I mentioned the U.S. could be going to war with Iran this weekend. And literally, as we were doing the Q&A, the first bomb started to drop. So
your fault, Mikey. You made it happen.
Oh yeah, but I had to assure everyone who was there tabling that the U.S. was going to get smoked, and sure enough, they are getting smoked today. So that's been a nice reassurance to see it happening all over in all their vassal states. And yeah, go see Earth's Greatest Enemy if it's playing in your city. I shot most of the Hawaii scenes, and it's that section in particular is a really good glimpse into just how ubiquitous and insidious U.S. empire is, particularly in places like Hawaii, and the huge environmental toll and toll on native peoples and their lands and waters. Oh, yeah. The background behind me is Makua Valley. I recently made my first feature documentary about Makua Valley called Malama Makua. It's not streaming online because we want to use it as an organizing tool for as long as possible, and to show it in community and have discussions about it. But it's one of the many places that the U.S. military has bombed for decades and conducted live fire training in. And an organization that I'm now part of, Malama Makua, was instrumental in winning a lawsuit to end live fire training and bombing permanently in the valley. So yeah, it's a beautiful place. And if you live in Hawaii, you should try to come on a cultural access. You like Vieques? Yes. Sorry, one more point that the organizers at Makua organized with people in Vieques and demonstrated solidarity across movements. They went to Puerto Rico, and yeah, there continues to be solidarity building around that.
That's awesome. Nora and I this week will be interviewing Arlene Eisen, and that'll come out on International Women's Day. And people asked about book recommendations. I just finished this. It's really excellent. I can't recommend like one book because I don't know. I'd probably say George Jackson, Blood in My Eye, or something like that, which is you should read that too. But really good book, and really look forward to talking to her. And I know Adnan hosted her and Nadia for a live stream just yesterday, right?
Yeah, the office hours yesterday.
Yeah,
with Nadia Tanous, who wrote the foreword, and it was a great dialogue between the two of them.
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, it's great. It's a great book. I'm like 3/4 of the way done. It's fantastic.
It's a great read. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
also,
think, Nora, do you have anything to promote? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Oh, also, if people want to watch and talk about Rocky 3 with us, I know it seems very off topic, but we're doing that on Monday with me and Mtume.
Awesome.
Which one is Rocky 3? Is that the Soviet one? No, that's Rocky 4.
No, we're not getting to Rocky
T.
4 yet, which would be more appropriate for this moment, but it's Mr. T and Hogan, yeah.
Is that the one with like the service robot?
No, that's
there's one with a robot in it.
Oh,
Rocky 6.
Maybe it does.
Maybe it is. Yeah.
I have to do my rewatch, so it might. Because it's after Rocky's a paper champ basically at this point, and he's all wealthy, and Mr. T's like, you're not a real champ anymore. Yeah, anyway.
Can you show the book again, Jay?
Yeah. So it's In the Worldwide Family of Militant Women by Arlene Eisen. If you go to iskrabooks.org, you can go right on there and download a free PDF and check it out and see if it's something that you're interested in before you buy a physical copy. And they're just a great publisher in general too. So while you're there, check out the other stuff that they have. There's a lot of good books that I would recommend from them. So yeah.
And check out the Electronic Intifada live streams Thursday at noon Eastern every week.
Until the end of time.
Until the end of time. Exactly.
Sorry, one important self-correction. It is Rocky 4, the robot butler, Paulie's robot butler.
Yeah. He's like living in Beverly Hills or something.
We will do Rocky 4. It's coming. So you don't, we just got to do 3 first.
It's fantastic.
So I think that's everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Lara, who organized all this. I cannot. Lara
do
did
anything. That was
no,
you.
Organized this. No, you took the lead. You took the lead and got us organized. I was just like, just whatever, not paying attention. So Lara did. You can all thank Lara and go make sure you subscribe to her channel if you don't already. Oh, and look who it is.
It's Neruda.
Neruda, hi.
Neruda.
Daisy was here earlier. She went downstairs. She had a meeting. But thank you, everyone. We should do this again. I think we have to do this again. It's too long. And this is a crazy number of views. Between all of our platforms, we had 878 total viewers, which is insane. I've never had this many on a live stream. Jay, you have
just how many were.
You have 229.
That's just how many were concurrently live. Like it's way more than that. Even,
Yeah, that's true. Like right now, I've never had this much. So this is really popular. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we should do this more. And please, everyone, support some fundraisers. If you're still here, maybe I can get you to support Muhammad and his friend Mahmoud. I can put the links in the chat, or I can put them at the end in the episode description. It's been a while since I've mentioned them, but they're struggling. No one's donating anymore. People have sort of put away Gaza in their brains. So please support them, donate them, and thank you, everyone. Stay strong. Don't submit to doomerism, and don't listen to Western media. Bye.
Love you guys. That's to America.
Love you guys. Take care. Woo.